Hey guys, in this video we're painting the little cat with the cocoa. To get started, have your canvas out. You're gonna need a jar or cup or something for some water to clean your brushes. Assortment of brush sizes, probably just these three, kind of a medium, a small, and then the liner brush for like whiskers and the little areas for detail work. Paper towel. And your paint colors for this one, you need black, white, red, and just a little bit of this Venetian red. It's burnt orange color. The easiest way to get your paint out of your little tubs, I just take a little scoop on a butter knife and then scrape it off on the edge. Then it's really easy to just wipe the butter knife clean on a paper towel to get your next color. And that way you're not getting all the different colors mixed into your little pots. I find it's easier to use this than a brush to scoop because this cleans a lot quicker than having to like rinse your brush out in your water and get it dry in between each color. So yes, definitely do your best to keep your little pots clean from other colors, and make sure you're always putting your lids back on secure so they make a little snap sound. That way they stay nice and wet, don't dry out on you, and you have them for your other paintings. So I'm going to get started with the background, and I'm just going to do a nice light gray. To make gray, I'm just going to use my medium brush. I'm going to get some of this white on here and a little bit of black stirred in. We don't want this very dark at all. It's very, very light gray. Oh, I have a red on my brush. Let me get that cleaned out. I don't want a pink sky. Thought I got it cleaned out good. Apparently I did not. All right, let's try this again. Then a little bit of red isn't gonna hurt. So there, I've got my gray. See how light it is? It's just a little bit darker than my white. Go ahead and just get started and get your whole background filled in. You can use a bigger brush if you like for these big areas. Make sure you're getting your paint spread out nice and even. You don't want big globs. And also make sure you're getting the whole canvas filled and you're not leaving little areas. So like when my paint runs out on my brush, it gets real rough looking. I just go get more paint and fill in. So be careful around my edges. This is a light color, so if you do get a little sloppy, it's easy to cover. Especially around this part because the cat is going to be black. If you are painting on a larger canvas, chances are you are, because in the bundle you get 11 by 14 inch canvases for your canvas paintings. When you're mixing your colors, make sure you're mixing, double what I'm showing, because I have a smaller canvas. This is 8 by 10. Also, your areas are larger than mine, so brush sizing, what I say to use may not necessarily be the case for you. You may want a bigger one for the spaces that I'm doing. And some of you may even have the bigger canvas, the biggest size, the 16 by 20s. I find the bigger ones are easier to paint just because spaces and details are larger. The little ones, you have to be more careful. But it's just more economical for me because I paint so many. to use the smaller ones, and also the space in which I'm painting in and being able to get it in the camera view. The small ones work best for that. So just depending on your canvas size, you need to, you know, adjust the amount of paint you mix, and the brush sizes that I choose to use may not necessarily be what works best for you. Just use what you're comfortable using. Make sure I've got all my canvas covered. Smooth out any little globs I might have. Looks good. A little chunk of something there. There we go. So next, I'm going to lighten this up just a little bit, the same gray. I'm just going to kind of get it in a pile. And I'm gonna add another scoop of white. Let's get some white from here. I'm gonna lighten it slightly, a little bit more, because it's not all that noticeable. It's a pretty good scoop of white. This is going to be the scarf color. So I see that it's gray on here. It will dry a little darker, but as you can see right up next to the other gray, it is noticeably lighter. And everyone's is gonna be a little different. Not everyone's gonna have the exact same shade. That's fine, it doesn't really matter, just so long as there's a, you know, you can see the difference between your shades. And I like to paint the sections of the scarf individually. And I can still see my pencil line a little bit, but this just helps me maintain, you know, between the different shapes. I can still differentiate because my brush strokes go a certain way. My brush is loaded with paint. Just trying to get some of that out. Also, if you're worried about not being able to see the different lines on your scarf, take a Sharpie, not while it's wet. Obviously, you want to do it before you start painting. And if you've gotten this far and want to do it now, let it dry, and then you can go in with your Sharpie and just trace over those lines. And then when you're painting over top, you'll definitely be able to see them. You won't lose them. I can see mine kind of. I can see enough of them to kind of find where I need to be. And the lumps on the side kind of show you where things go. So now I have my scarf. I'm gonna do the hat this color as well. Not the little ball. Ooh, got big. Brush I have here, I'm painting at the house. The brush I have here is not the best. He's got scraggly bristles that poke out every which way. But I'm dealing with it. I'm just gonna kind of scrape the excess paint off my brush. It's pretty full from mixing. When you mix paint, it loads up pretty quick. And I just want to make this a little bit darker. I just took the teeniest little bit of black. I'll just darken a small area. And I'm just gonna brush it through just kind of the bottom, trying to create a little bit of a brim. And it's just subtle, just enough to kind of show that there's a brim there. Now for our mittens, do we want to do the mittens? Probably not yet. I think we're going to want to paint our cat first. Let's paint our cat black. So body, head. We're going to have to go over the eyes, unless you want to be real meticulous. They're little swoops. Just kind of make a mental note of where they belong on the canvas. We will paint around his little cheekies and nose. I'm just cleaning out my brush. And whatever size works for your space brush, feel free to use whatever you like. I'm going to use this medium one and probably go back in with my small one to smaller areas. And I'm just going to paint my whole kitty black. Careful resting your hand. You may be on wet paint. I should probably just throw the blow dryer on this real quick, just so I don't do that. Carrying on, just with my black. Try to keep your edges clean, nice smooth lines. I like to rotate my canvas around while I work, just so my hand can be in a position that's the most comfortable. So I'm not trying to confuse you by switching it around every which way. Promise. I'm going to switch to my smaller brush to get a nice point on that ear. Typically I could use that medium brush, but because it's so beat up, I don't trust it, and I struggle when I can just switch brushes. And we're gonna paint his body, not the little gloves or the mug. While I have my little brush though, I'm gonna go ahead and get in this little mug handle area. And lay around these edges. just so I can have nice, smooth, clean lines. When you're using a little brush, just make sure you're only picking up a little bit of paint at a time, because it's really easy to get big globs, especially in small spaces like this area here. Just a little bit of paint at a time. You can always pick up more. If you end up getting too much paint in a small space, just kind of wipe your brush clean and then kind of scrape up the excess paint, and you can wipe it on your plate or your paper towel. Just try your best to get any big globbies spread out or scooped off. I think I can go back to my bigger brush and get those big areas filled in a lot quicker. Smoothing out some globs I see. And with black paint, it's very easy to miss little dots in the canvas because of the texture. And they're hard to see when it's wet. So once it's dry, if you see like little spots of your canvas wanting to like poke through, just go back in, do another quick once over and fix her right up. Just make sure it's dry. Looks good to me. So we got our kitty. filled in. I'm going to do the ball on the hat white next. So I'm going to get all that black cleaned out on my brush. Get it dried on my towel. Didn't want water dripping down on my canvas. Just a little bit of white paint. Let's get this ball filled in. So I'm gonna do the edges smooth to start. Then to make it fluffy, I'll use my smaller brush. A little bit of white. And I'm just gonna kind of fluff it out. Just make the edge messy. And I'm gonna paint his little cheekies white. And the nose is going to be pink, so I'll just leave that alone. Let's see. And the ball, the hat, I'm just gonna take one of my shades of gray. Maybe a little bit darker gray. Not super dark. That one's really, really light, so I'm just gonna darken that shade up slightly. This way I could put some little poof balls, like little poofs in the hat. I'll just take a little bit of white on top just to kind of spread that out a little and make it look a little less dark. And I just kind of go from the middle and go outward. Next, let's get those gloves filled in. So they're going to be a little bit darker shade than our background. I'm going to take a little bit more black with some white. I don't want it super, super dark. Kind of like a medium gray. This is definitely darker than our background color, as you can see. Bit more light gray in there. I'm going to paint in his little mittens. Probably should have done the mug first. Yeah, I'm gonna stop because the mug is kind of behind the gloves. So if we get a little messy, we can cover it with the glove gray. So I'm just gonna take a step back, get my mug colored red. Just use my small brush. And I'm gonna do the inside. That's gonna have cocoa in it, but go and do the outside of the mug. The bigger brush is probably better for this big space here, but I'm being lazy and don't feel like cleaning it. I'm switching. I definitely need the little one for like inside the space here and this. Sorry, just sometimes I get nervous that I'm not recording anymore, so I just like to take a peek, make sure all is well, and all is well. I'm gonna let that dry, and I want to give it one more coat. Maybe. Another quick coat of red just to get all the streaks out. Perfect. Hey. Okay, I got all the red. Next, I'm gonna just go back and finish the gloves. I already have the gray made. Here. Again, just take your time, smooth out all your globs. Small spaces don't require much paint, especially using a small brush. You don't want it to pull up and get gloopy. And next, let's see. Let's add some designs to our hat. I'm gonna use the same color gray. I'm just gonna put little dash marks. Just like little dabs. I put some of those in my scarf. And then I'm going to also add white ones. So this white paint, small brush. They're really overlapping, but if they do, that's okay. They're kind of like in between the other ones. On the hat, I kind of went up with my stroke. On the scarf, I'm going more left to right. A little drip of water there. Going to put some lines up and down on the brim of the hat where we painted earlier, made it a little bit darker. So I'm just going to take my white paint, try not to risk my hand in wet paint, and I'm just going to put up and down lines. And let's see what else. Looks good. I'm going to take this same dark gray color, maybe make it a little bit darker, a little black. And this just a skosh bit darker gray. I'm going to go in and outline all like the little folds in the scarf and around the hat. I'll start with the hat. I like to use the edge of the brush, get a thinner line, or use like a liner brush, a long skinny one. Those work well. I like to rotate my canvas again. I think I mentioned it already, just so that my hand is more comfortable. I'm right-handed and I like to paint on the side of things. All the folds of the scarf. I thinned out my paint with a little water. This would be a little bit easier because the flow would go better. When it's thinner, it just goes on smoother. So let's just stir in just a little bit of water. You don't want it drippy, drippy, watery, but just a little scoop of water from your brush. Stir that in, you'll be good to go. And then we need to do this top line. I think this is dry enough I can safely rest my hand on it. There, we got all our lining done. Let's do something to our mittens here. Let's make our gray a little bit darker. Just one more little scoop of black. Maybe 2 scoops. And I'm gonna put little trees. So I want the top of the tree right here, and I'm just gonna start like I'm making a triangle. Got a little tree. There's a little stem, a trunk rather. Do the same on this one. So it's like a little triangle, almost, and then inside, they kind of come out a little wider, a little wider. We'll just fill it in. Give him a little trunk. So put a little band across the top. Outline, outline the top, and I'll just put like little dashy lines in there, make it look like ribbing, like on a mitten. Maybe just put a few little, because we have like this weird like texture design in our scarf and hat. I'm just gonna add some of those in my mittens. A little bit smaller, using the dark gray. And then just do a little bit of outlining. I just added a little water to my dark gray. I should be using my liner brush because it makes a smaller line, and I am trying to do really little lines. Just maybe not as outliney as the rest, but just a little bit something on the edge. So there's our little gloves. Next, we'll finish up our mug. So I'm gonna add a little bit of black to some red so I can get some shadows in there. So just a little dab of black and with lots of red. Just darken it slightly. And around the bottom, I'm gonna brush a little in. And shadow where the glove and the mug meet. And just tiny bits on your brush at a time. You can always add more. You don't want it globbing up on you. On this edge. And if your color is darker than mine, you can always tone it down by just putting a little bit more of the plain red on top and do the underside of the handle. And then just a little dab up in here. Mine actually could be a little bit darker. If you want to spread it out more, just take plain red. That's what I have on my brush right now. Just on the edge, just kind of push it out. So it's subtle. Next, I'm going to put the cocoa inside. And I'm going to make a really, really light brown. And I'm going to mix. Got some of this orange. And a little bit of black. Stir it together till it makes brown. A little bit orangey brown. Could use a smidge more black. And then I'm going to take a nice big scoop of white and stir that in. So I've got this like light brown cocoa-y color. And I'm going to just fill in the whole inside of the mug. And then later when it's dry, we'll put the rim on using white. So right now we're just going to do brown, and then we'll clean up the edge with like basically a white outline. While that's drying, let's come up here and do our little nose. So it's just very, very, very pale pink. Take a little white, just a tiny little dab of red. So it's super light. And come in and just get this little, this does have like a little black outline. We'll put that in. And that'll cover up our pencil lines and what have you. So there's our nose. Let's get our whiskers and things in. I'm gonna get some white. Let's put it over here. And using my long skinny brush, I'm gonna just take some water, thin it out. The whiskers will go on so much nicer if we have thinner paint. Let's get the big chunks kind of broke up. So I don't want it so watery, so like when I lift up my plate, it just wants to run off. It doesn't want it, you don't want it dripping off your brush. So the whiskers, they're just gonna be nice long lines this way. Well, you know what, before we do whiskers, we gotta put the inside of the ear on using that light pink color. So we're just gonna paint a little triangle, basically, inside of the ear. Might need a second coat. Right now it just looks white. It is indeed very light pink. Needs to dry for a second coat. Just want to get that done because my whiskers may go that away. I don't want to have to worry about dodging whiskers painting the inside of the ear. This looks dry. So I'm going to take a little bit of white with a little bit of this. Just kind of want to swirl it a little. So my cocoa isn't all the same color. I'm just going to start in the center. Just kind of spiral around. Now using white, I'm going to put the rim on the mug. So it'll come across the top. And across the bottom. little bit of a highlight on the handle. Like I have next to zero paint on my brush. Right, I'm gonna go ahead and do my pink ear again. Second coat on that. My pink probably could have been a little more pink. That's okay. Maybe I'll add a little bit more red. There we go. Now the whiskers. So long skinny brush. We've already got water in our white. Right here, I've got my thinned out white. This kind of stressed me out. You get one try. So 1, 2, 3. I got 3. You could do more, 4 if you want. Oh, let's do his little eyes. And they're just like little curved lines about here and here. I'm using black, I'll outline the nose. Just a tiny bit of black. And let's see. Let's put some steam coming off of our cocoa. I'm gonna use my long skinny brush to some white paint, and we're gonna do like curly cues. So basically spirals. And do one off of this. It's kind of a big one. And it is easier with a skinny brush and water in your paint. And have this one kind of come up and into the black. And another one over here. It's kind of hard to see it on that gray, but when you're right on top of it, it's really easy. That looks good to me. You could even put like little marshmallows in there if you wanted. I'm not gonna bother with that because I'm afraid if I do, we won't really be able to tell they're marshmallows. Let's see. I guess next is just a bunch of snow in the background. But let's do little polka dots on our mug. Let's make our mug cute. Use my small square brush. And I'm just gonna use my regular white, not the thinned out white. Just some white. Little brush, a little bit on it at a time. I'm just gonna paint little circles, little polka dots on my mug. Cute. Second quick coat. Let's make them nice and bright white. And lastly, all of the little snow. So using my small brush and just some white, I'm gonna put nice little round snowflakes You can also make the fancy ones that are like crisscross and little lines on them. I'm going to keep it simple since there's a lot of detail already going on elsewhere. We don't need it getting too busy. Still feel like my puff needs a little bit of an outline, so I'm going to go in and do that too. So everything else looks nice and outlined. My puff seems lonely. I'm not gonna put a bunch of snow on the cat because he's got a lot of details on him and it will just get super busy. So maybe he's in front of a window where it's snowing. Excuse me. So let's see. Use my small square brush. I'm gonna take just a little bit of a darker gray. Whatever I happen to have on my plate here. Thin it just a little because it's starting to get kind of chunky from being out drying. Anytime your paint gets a little thick, you can always just dip your brush in some water and then just stir little bits in at a time until it gets to be a better consistency. I'm just going to kind of add a little bit of a floof to the edge, a little outline. Put a few in there. That looks more consistent with the rest. And I think he's done. I don't see anything that looks like it's lacking or looking a little weird. I think he's adorable. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed painting with me. This one, I like goofy little quirky paintings. It's my personality. So this is one of my more favorite ones. I'm gonna sign my name. And yeah, I hope you enjoy painting along. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.